ACC and the Sacramento JACL would like to welcome you to our Memorial Day program. I'm Debbie Eto, and along with Keith Adachi, Lorenzo Cuesta, and the Honorable Charles Kobayashi, we will be your hosts for the program. We are honored to present this program in memory of the veterans who have gone before us and for the veterans who are among us. We salute you all. I'd like to start off with the color guard.
I'm Yolanda Cuesta, and I'm holding the United States Marine Corps flag in honor of Nelson Gomez, my brother-in-law, who served our country during the Vietnam War.
I'm Kathy Del Mendo, and I'm holding the United States Navy flag in honor of my cousin, Keith Sunahara, who served on the USS Gintaro, a nuclear submarine.
My name is Lorenzo Cuesta. I am holding the flag of the United States Coast Guard in honor of Joe DePinto, who served during the Second World War.
My name is Keiji Takagi. I'm holding the Air Force flag. I served from 1958 to 1964, and this is also honoring all the Air Force personnel.
My name is Lois Nishimura, and I'm holding the U.S. Army flag in honoring one of my relatives, General Eric Shinseki.
I would like to introduce the Honorable Charles Kobayashi to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank the choir, the Showstoppers, for doing a beautiful rendition of the National Anthem. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Charles Kobayashi in giving a history of Memorial Day.
Today is Memorial Day, a day in which we honor men and women who have given their lives in the service of our country. Memorial Day as we know it today began approximately in 1865, shortly after the end of the Civil War. At that time, there were hundreds of thousands of families, both the North and the South, who were mourning the death of their fathers, their husbands, their brothers, their sons, and other relatives. An organization of Union veterans then approached Congress at that time and requested that Congress enact a holiday, a special holiday for the veterans. And so Congress established what was known as Decoration Day to decorate the cemeteries of the deceased soldiers with flowers. And to this day, from that point on, we celebrate this holiday, a solemn holiday, by going to the various cemeteries, and also the U.S. government formally acknowledges it by going to the Arlington Cemetery, often accompanied by the President of the United States.
At this time, the Showstoppers will share with you a photographic montage of the former commanders of the Nissan Hall VFW 8985.
I pray you'll be our eyes and watch us where we go, and help us to be wise in times that we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe. I pray we find your light. I pray we find your light and hold it in our heart. And hold it in our heart. And stars go out each night. And stars go out each night. Remind us who we are. Let this be our prayer. Let this be our prayer. When shadows fill our day. When shadows fill our day. Lead us to a place. Guide us with your grace. Give us peace so we'll be safe. A world where pain and sorrow will be ended, and every heart that's broken will be mended. And we'll remember we are all the children reaching out to touch you, reaching toward the sky. We ask that life be kind. We ask that life be kind. And watch us from above. And watch us from above. We hope each soul will find. We hope each soul will find. Another soul to love. Another soul to love. Let this be our prayer. Let this be our prayer. Just like every child. Just like every child needs to find a place
At this time, I'd like to introduce Walter Liang to tell about his military experience.
Hello, my name is Walter Liang. I'm a resident at Greenhaven Terrace across the street, and I'm currently a lifetime member of the Gung Ho Post 696, serving as the first vice commander. I was drafted into the Army in 1966 through 1968 and served most of my time back in Washington, D.C. at the medical center. Also, I would like to thank the Chinese veterans, men and women who served in World War II. The Congressional Medal gave a ceremony back in September, and also regional events to honor the men and women of Chinese descent who served in World War II and gave their lives up and the peace and freedom for us to have today. So I'm also involved with a group called the Puget Sound Honor Flights. This is a nonprofit organization which has about 174 hubs, and I was affiliated with the Seattle chapter, and we started in 2013 and have sent over 1,400 World War II veterans, Korean veterans, and Vietnam veterans to Washington, D.C. to see the wars and the memorials on that. This is all free to the veterans, and it costs approximately $1,000 for each veteran for going on a 3-day trip from Seattle to Washington, D.C. Back there, so we spend 3 days, and so we visit the World War II Memorial, the Vietnam Wall, the Korean Memorial, Arlington Cemetery, the Tomb of the Unknown, Iwo Jima, the Air Force Memorial, the Navy Memorial, FDR monuments, and the Lincoln and Jefferson monuments. So that just goes to show that that's a packed 3 days. Each veteran who goes has a guardian to accompany him, and it costs $1,000 per veteran, which Honor Flight pays, but it costs $1,000 per guardian, which the guardian pays. But my experience is that I've been there back to Washington, D.C. with this trip 27 times. And each time is different for me because I have a different veteran to host. And you get to hear their war experience that a lot of people will never hear. Iwo Jima, Utah, the day, the Normandy Beach, Japan, and all of these other wars and forces that they've fought in. But that's why there's very few World War II veterans today. They're dying rapidly. So if you're a World War II veteran, they get to go on top of the line, because right now there's a waiting list of about 500 veterans, most of them Vietnam veterans now. One of my experiences was, so I took a veteran who was also a friend of mine, and he told me that he was dying of cancer. And about 2 weeks later, he says the doctor said that he's not going to make it. So we arranged for him to get bumped up on the next trip to the Washington, D.C. And he really enjoyed the trip. But at the same time, after he came back, so he died 8 days later. And that was a shock to me, because he was there enjoying what he wanted to do before he left, and I'm glad that we were able to accomplish his mission for him. So for Memorial Day, I just want all of you to, if you see a veteran, say thank you for your service, because they really deserve some recognition for what they do for our country. Have a happy Memorial Day.
Thank you, Walter. At this time, we'd like to introduce Lester Uchida to talk about the 442nd.
Seems fine, yeah. It's good today that we're honoring all veterans, but today I'm going to focus on speaking about a very special unit in World War II. It was a segregated Japanese-American regiment, the 442nd, as Debbie mentioned. When the war broke out, World War II, Japanese Americans of draft age were classified as 4C, enemy aliens. And my uncle, who was already in the U.S. Army when the war broke out, he was just assigned to peel potatoes and clean toilets because they didn't know what to do with Japanese American guys. But as the war went on, a unit of Hawaiian boys volunteered and they formed the 100th Infantry Battalion. And these guys trained on the mainland and then went to fight in Italy. And they fought in a couple of major battles. If you're a World War II historian, the names Cassino, Anzio, Salerno, those were big battles. And this 100th Infantry Battalion fought in those battles and very valiantly. And if you know what the medal that's given, if you're a U.S. military person and you're wounded or killed in battle, you're awarded the Purple Heart. Guess what the nickname of the Purple Heart, the 100th Battalion became after those battles? They were nicknamed the Purple Heart Battalion. And maybe that had some impetus for George Marshall, who was Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. He pushed to form a whole regiment of Japanese American guys, and that was the formation of the 442nd. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team trained in Mississippi, and they had gotten more volunteers from the mainland and Hawaii, and they actually integrated the 100th Infantry Battalion into the 442nd. And the 442nd went on to fight in Italy, France, and a little bit into Germany, and they became the most decorated unit in the history of the U.S. Army for size and duration. And I have a chart in front of me here that I'm going to just read the decorations that the regiment received. 7 presidential unit citations. Our highest medal given by our country, 21 medals of honor. The next highest award, the Distinguished Service Cross, they received 33. 342 Silver Stars, 810 Bronze Stars, and amazingly, 9,486 Purple Hearts. That's pretty amazing. They had to replenish the unit twice over. And I think about the 442nd, and the word that always comes to my mind is the word bittersweet, because there are so many stories about the 442 that evoke in me that there's a bitterness, but there's also a sweetness in their stories. And I want to tell you a few of these bittersweet stories. When Dan Inouye came back from the war, I went to a convention or reunion in Jerome, Arkansas a few years back before Dan had passed away, but he talked about returning from Europe, and here he walked into a barber shop in Oakland to look nice for his folks to get this haircut before he returned to Hawaii. And he walked in with his U.S. Army uniform, a chest full of ribbons, and a sleeve with no arm. And the barber refused to cut his hair. And he said, why? And the barber said, we don't cut Jap hair here. So what a sad story. A Medal of Honor winner was refused a haircut. And then I think about, it's very little known story, but elements of the 442nd actually were the first ones that went into one of the satellite camps of Dachau, the German extermination camp, and they were the first ones to break open one of the satellite camps. And that was probably purposely not publicized when, the Japanese American families are interned behind camps. So kind of understandable why that story was so suppressed. Couple of other stories. President Truman knew about the battle record of the 442nd. When they had returned, he had requested that the 442nd march down Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. And that morning it started raining, and President Truman's advisors said, let's call off this parade. And Truman's words were, what these boys went through, a little rain's not going to hurt even a president. So he had some very nice words. He pinned a unit citation on the battle flag of the 442nd. And President Truman said to the troops, you fought not only prejudice, you fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you're winners. So that was a nice comment from the president to the troops. And then my kind of last story, I think it's a really touching one, and again, bittersweet, is the fact that this Kazuo Masuda from Southern California was killed in the 442nd in a battle, and he was bodies returned to Southern California, and the city would not allow his body to be buried in the city cemetery. And General Stilwell found out about that, and other veterans, and they got that reversed. And then General Stilwell went to Santa Ana to present the Distinguished Service Cross posthumously to Kazuo Masuda's family. And he was brought along a young captain to that award ceremony. His name, Captain Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan spoke some very nice words at that award ceremony. And 40 years later, whatever, when the Japanese Americans were pushing for the reparations bill to get an apology and a reparation from the federal government for that wrongdoing, Mary Masuda, the sister of Sergeant Masuda, wrote a letter to President Reagan now. And she said, I remember that day you spoke at my brother's award ceremony. You were a great American that day, and I speak about your words when I speak, and I'm often asked to speak at the Kazuo Masuda Middle School in Santa Ana. And she said, you were a great American that day when you spoke at my brother's ceremony. I wish you'd be a nice, good American again and sign our reparations bill. And many people think, because Reagan's advisors were even saying, gee, there's only a few surviving Japanese Americans. They advised against signing that reparations bill. But a lot of people think that that letter from Mary Masuda to President Reagan might have a very influential part and Reagan signing the bill. So in conclusion, I think about all these bittersweet stories, but how much the 442nd did for all the Japanese Americans as far as changing the attitude of our whole country towards Japanese Americans. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lester. That was wonderful. I can't wait to hear more stories. It's fascinating. At this time, we'd like to bring on Keith Adachi.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. No, I'll stand my ground. Won't be turned around. And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down. I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. I won't back down. Hey, I stand my ground, and I won't back down. Well, I what's right. I got just one life in a world that keeps on pushing me around, but I'll stand my ground, and I won't back down. I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. I won't back down. Stand my ground. I won't back down. Back down.
Thank you, vets, for everything you've done. Hopefully this means something to you like it's meant to me.
I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. I won't back down. I won't back down. I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. I won't back down. Stand my ground, and I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Thank you, Keith. That was nice. If you're wondering why we're all wearing this red poppy today, I'm going to bring up Lorenzo Cuesta to explain it to you.
During the First World War, the Allies, the British, the Americans, Canadians, were fighting the Germans in an area near Belgium and France called Flanders. The two of them were at it for months, for years. They bombed and shelled each other day and night. More than 50,000 men died, and that's just on the Allied side. Who knows how many Germans were killed? But nothing was left of the land. It was devastated. No crops, no home, no trees, nothing. Only black mud from all the explosion, the metal, the poisons, all of that was being discharged. Everything died. There was a doctor out there that was working on the trenches, and he noticed something, that even though nothing came back alive, the red puppy started showing up. It turns out the soil was so messed up that nothing else would grow except something that needed a lot of metal content. And that's why we have the red poppy. After he observed this, he wrote a poem called Flanders Fields. It is written from the perspective of the dead who are telling the living, you must press on, you must persevere. In 1920, the American Legion took this red poppy and made it its national flower. In 1924, they had a countrywide campaign to promote the red poppy as a symbol of remembrance, honoring those who died. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the lark still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands withdraw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you with failing hands withdraw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields.
Thank you, Lorenzo. That was lovely. Right now, we're going to bring up Kathy Imora Del Mendo to give the prayer.
For the soldiers who sacrificed their lives in service, we remember you. We honor you, we love you, and we humbly thank you for your service. A simple thank you is not enough for all that you've endured. We pray that you live on through the loving memories shared by your family and loved ones. We pray that the strife, battles, and wounds of war be calm for eternity in loving grace. May you rest at last and know that those left behind cherish your spirit, honor your commitment, send their love, and we will never forget your sacrifice. At this time, I would like to reintroduce the Honorable Charles Kobayashi to talk about a moment of silence.
In the year 2000, Congress passed the law called the National Moment of Remembrance. It encouraged all Americans to take time out at 3 p.m. today to honor all of the men and women who died for our country during their service. In 1868, then Congressman and later President James Garfield said that regarding Memorial Day, it would be inappropriate for me to say anything. So rather than say anything, I would just keep quiet. And then later that day, at Arlington Cemetery, he said, if silence is ever to be golden, then today, at the graves of these soldiers, it must remain silent. Because whatever I say would have little significance compared to the significance of the lives of these soldiers who gave their lives for this country. And although today is Memorial Day, we honor veterans on this day, I still think because of the tremendous amount of violence that's going on today, I'd like to also have you share a moment of silence for the young victims of the violence, such as the young children who were killed last week at Uvalde, Texas. So now I will ask you to join me for observe a moment of silence and bow our heads.